Joining us now, Democratic Senator Chris Coons of Delaware. He is a member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. Senator, it's always good to see you. Thank you so much for being here. I want to pull us back to near the end of that press conference where he made an acknowledgement that, hey, people want me to be a president, not a senator. That minor incursion remark, they had to clean it up right away. In some ways, it struck me as him being the candid senator instead of the commander-in-chief. How concerned are you that he made that remark that frankly, they had to clean up right away?
Kasie, it's great to be back on with you and to see you back on air this morning. I think President Biden has been very clear in person with Vladimir Putin when they've met in public, and so has his senior leadership team in the national security and State Department agencies, that any crossing of Ukraine's border by Russian troops will be responded to quickly, forcefully, decisively. And I think President Biden has done a strong job of organizing, corralling, assembling a coalition of our NATO allies and our European partners to send a strong message to Putin and Putin's Russia that there will be high costs for any invasion of Ukraine.
But he wasn't terribly clear yesterday.
Look, what he was saying out loud was a concern many of us have, which is Russia showed over a number of conflicts over the last couple of years a willingness and an ability to use gray zone attacks, things like cybersecurity measures. Just in the last few weeks, there have been a number of attacks on Ukrainian websites, for example. In other areas, such as the 2014 takeover by Russia of the Crimean Peninsula, it was done in a way that was not immediately clear that they were Russian troops. It was done with troops without insignia. It was done stealthily. And so I think that's really what he was referring to, was Russia's demonstrated in Moldova, in Georgia, in Crimea, and in other places in Eastern Europe, a willingness to use covert means if they engage in an overt invasion of Ukraine. A message just delivered in person by a bipartisan Senate delegation last weekend, there will be a strong and forceful American response.
Senator, one of the things that we've talked about often in a domestic political context and some of the polling and focus groups is this idea, often pushed by right-wing media, that the president is weak. That does seem to be breaking through in some ways. It's something we heard from a Democratic focus group that was reported on in the Washington Post. But I'm wondering how you see it in the international context, because the idea that he acknowledged that there were divisions among our NATO allies on how to deal with said minor incursion really stuck out to me. Do you think he is projecting weakness that Vladimir Putin can seize on?
I don't. I think the American people, frankly, I think the world is tired of this pandemic. It has gone on a year longer than many of us had initially hoped or expected because of the Delta variant, now the Omicron variant, and frankly, because of widespread resistance to public health measures here in the United States, masking, vaccination, which would have gotten us out of this faster. President Biden's administration distributed quickly vaccines developed under the previous administration that have now led to 3/4 of Americans having had at least one vaccine dose. That's more than 500 million shots in arms in the United States, and we've exported to the rest of the world hundreds of millions of vaccine doses. That's real leadership. And I'll remind you, Kasie, on President Biden's first trip to Europe, to the UK, to the EU, to NATO, and his confrontation in person with Vladimir Putin, he showed strength, clarity, and forward movement, building on what had previously been a sharply divided relationship between the United States and some of our most important allies in Europe, principally Germany. We are in a much stronger place with the U.S.-German relationship today, which will be critical to having a united front in pushing back on Vladimir Putin's Russia.
Certainly extraordinarily different than what we saw under former President Trump. Senator, quickly before I let you go, the president yesterday in his press conference said that without the voting rights legislation that failed last night, there are questions potentially about the legitimacy of our elections in 2022. Do you agree with that statement, or is it a dangerous one for our democracy?
Look, I frankly think we have to do everything we can to ensure that the certification of results in 2022 is not influenced by partisan actions. A bipartisan group of senators is meeting tomorrow to try and move forward a narrower bill than the one we were considering last night on the floor, an urgent and an important pair of bills that would have restored the Voting Rights Act, would have set a federal standard for access to the ballot federally. There are things we can and should do to prevent the subversion of election results. In a half dozen states, changes have been made in terms of taking formerly nonpartisan election officials and replacing them with state legislatures or partisan officials. There are increasing threats against election workers. I think we can make progress in reforming the Electoral Count Act and adding some provisions that will protect election workers. That's the kind of work we need to get to now. The president also said in his press conference he's optimistic we can make some progress on that. And I do think that'll contribute to addressing this vital question of whether or not our 2022 midterm elections can be made as safe and secure as possible.
Should the president clarify his remarks about the integrity and legitimacy of our elections?
I do think that it's important for him to embrace the forward movement that's possible here and to reassure the American people that our next elections can and should be legitimate and secure.
All right. Senator Chris Coons, thank you very much for joining us this morning. We really appreciate you being here.
Thank you.